I'm live. Sunday hello, Shirley. Can you hear me? Just someone tell me, let me know if you can hear me. I think you can. Um I'm guessing it all works. All right, hello. It's been a while. Uh I got back from Mexico a few weeks ago and thought I had scheduled something for that Saturday. That was Saturday before yesterday, and failed to schedule that. And then yesterday, I thought I had scheduled for 11 o'clock, and it turned out I had scheduled for 10 and missed it, and missed you as a result. Um, MZ Nip says he likes loves these discussions. I love them. I kind of need them. Uh, they're important to me. You're my muses, um, and I hope I'm your muse as well. I had a conversation yesterday. I was out with my friend Joan Blades, and we were both talking about how we felt slightly flat. And I started to think about confidence currencies, what you rate confidence in terms of. By the way, you can hear me, right? This is all working? Someone give me a sign that you can hear me. I think you'd probably have told me if you can't. And I wish I could hear you. Yeah, sounding good. All right, thank you. Hey, Kyle! Whoa! Nice to see you, man. Uh, except I can't. Good. Okay. Glad to hear. So, confidence currencies, uh, they seem to accumulate, however, kind of spontaneously. It's like, how do you measure success? What's the currency you're measuring success in terms of? Um, uh, and also, it's kind of marginal success. It's how do you measure upticks in success? Kind of like what has it's kind of like signs from God that you're okay as delivered by God's minions. I don't believe in God, but it's that kind of a feeling, and it interests me how that works for us all. I would say that mine come from a combination of, well, it's been obviously we traffic in different currencies, different investment portfolios. And here I'm not talking about money, though money can be one of these tools. It's different investment portfolios in how we maintain our mojo, how we maintain our confidence. All of this relates to what's different about humans, but also what's different about MAGA people, because they're juicing. They're on steroids. They're on a confidence booster. That's interesting. But anyway, I think about how they're very different from us and how they're very similar. So, what are my confidence currencies? Um, well, for a long time, it was sex, love, romance, dating, partnership, that sort of stuff. Um, uh, it was to some extent from vocational success, though working as I did in kind of radical, unusual projects, uh, there wasn't as much of that. That is, I spent most of my life working on very speculative investments that didn't pay off very well. Um, uh, for me, most of my life, I've been what they call other directed. That is, I do pay attention to what others think of me. These days, I'm grateful that a lot of my confidence currency comes from having new ideas and putting them out. But that's not all. I'm also very reliant on the confidence currency of people resonating with my ideas, with the ideas that are coming to me. They're not my ideas, but they're ideas that come through me. I channel them. I feel good about myself for channeling them. They're my ideas. I take some credit for them. But if I feel audience dwindling, or if I'm in a place like I've been in for the last month where I've been, traveling and a little diffuse, generating ideas, but not with the same kind of focus, not the productivity work cycle um, that I'm normally on. I haven't been putting out as many videos. I can feel the confidence currency dropping to where it becomes not an enthusiastic move for me to make a video, but a little bit of a chore. The reason I'm bringing this up is I'm a autobiographically obsessed, but I also think it might have some relevance to your own lives. I don't assume that I'm the only one who traffics in confidence currencies. And the question then becomes, what are yours? Um, they work a little bit better when you don't notice that they're your confidence currencies. And the Trumpists don't see that at all. They think they're being straight shooters. They don't notice that they're just straight shooting up uh, mainline mojo boosting confidence currencies. That's interesting to me these days. Um, the one way I'd put it is that introspection is kryptonite to assholes, and their main superpower is the capacity to avoid it. Um, so no, they wouldn't want to notice their confidence currencies. I think it's useful for me to notice mine, even though it does reduce their power a little bit at first to recognize, wait a second, I'm basically a hamster who's living for this kind of pellet. Am I making sense? I hope I am here. Uh, it, it can be a little bit of buzzkill to admit that you are getting your buzz from this or that source of confidence boost. Um, but I think it's useful because why? I have to recognize, first of all, that I am human. I need my confidence boosts, um, even though they're kind of pathetic in the grand scheme of things. Um, that pettiness is not beneath me. Egotism is not beneath me. I do need my confidence currencies. I want to recognize that about myself rather than pretending that other people need confidence currencies and I don't. And then I want to exercise it. I want to design my life in such a way that I get the confidence currencies that I'm relying on, and also to make sure that they are good ones and they don't go to my head. Um, uh, so that's recognize, exercise, manage, um, and I think that's a seems to be the approach I'm drawn to these days. Um, and so I've been a little bit cold turkey off of you guys because this is really important to me. I come away from this feeling okay. I remember what I do. I remember, you believe it or not, when I'm not putting out stuff, I kind of forget that I have any ideas. Um, I forget that I have any ideas, uh, if I'm not having any in the moment or if I'm not sharing them. Also, another thing that's related to this is it's a business about it being about marginal confidence boosts. Um, you've seen me write about this, I hope. Uh, Goes without saying, bears repeating. I'm really interested in affirmationomics or egonomics, how we maintain our reassurance, but I also recognize that that is mostly a black market. We don't want to talk about, we don't want to even admit about all the confidence boosting things we have in our lives. Once we have a reliable source of confidence, we tend to take it for granted. It becomes the new baseline. It's like happiness treadmill sort of talk. And so what we're talking about is marginal differences, the ups and downs that can be for some of us manic depressive whipsaws, but for other of us, it's within a margin um, of feeling better or feeling worse, depending on what kinds of confidence currencies we're relying on. Okay, oh, that is a prefix to whatever. Anybody who's here, pitch something you want to talk about. Kick the tires on something. Name something that is on your mind. Um, the idea behind this is to get others having as much fun generating as I am. So I mean, some people don't live that life, and I really appreciate it. But for me, really, the confidence currency is getting some new idea, um, some new connection between ideas. I was talking to someone. Oh, yeah, I was talking to yeah. Anyway, confidence boosting currencies makes sense. Good, there we go. Goaty Goatface. Well, there you are. I mean, greatest of all time. And how are you going to pull that off? You're going to pull it off with some confidence boosting currencies. I think one thing I'll relate it to is I've been revisiting incompleteness lately. Just so 2 nights ago, I watched a new to me video about girdle incompleteness. Um, yeah, competence. And sorry, let me make this connection. You got these two words, competence and confidence. And for me, I ended up a while ago realizing that they're actually and competence. All right, these are interesting to me. I'm going to shift back to this topic. Um, my problem is always this nagging feeling that I need to do something more important. I know that feeling well, and that's sort of where I want to go, which is even in an optimized life, it ends up feeling suboptimal. Um, and and why it would be that way, I'll give you one example came back to mind because I was dealing with a friend who just lost a parent. When my dad died at 59 years old, when I was 33-ish, I was by his side, and there was a palpable relief in it. Not because he was dying. I love the guy. And it was way too soon. But I noticed disturbingly that it was the only time in recent memory back then when I didn't have that nagging feeling that I need to do something more important. There was a sense that this is exactly where I needed to be. And believe it or not, there was a little bit of relief in that. I had that problem, that nagging feeling that I need to do something more important. I've had that all my life, and I'm not sure everybody does. Um, and I have a mixture of envy and disdain for those who don't, but it's like this sense that something's amiss and that there is a better something I should be doing. There's obviously some other path that I'm missing. Um, Yes, lack of self-worth is usually hidden by verbal dogma. Okay, so all of this relates in my mind, but I really gotta hand it to you, Godi, for bringing that up because that's really I think it's an extraordinary driver for us. And, um, one way I've heard it described with respect to Islam was that Islam actually gave people relief from exactly that nagging feeling. As long as you prayed to Mecca every day on schedule, that was the only thing on your short list you had to accomplish. As long as you accomplished that, the rest of the day was free time. You could do whatever. So think about how important a powerful yearning that would be in all of us. That sense that maybe we're not doing the right thing, and think of how dogmas reassure around that, and verbal dogmas, and you could say lip service dogmas. So when you're trying to understand Trumpists or liberals who are doing the same thing, that kind of virtue signaling that they somehow represent what's good and wonderful in the world, all of that, and you tie that to what Godi was talking about here, I think it fits together. It certainly fits together in my life. When I joined the commune, which was earlier than my father's death, um, that was the relief I got as well. It's a sense that no matter what I was doing, it was already important. It was exactly that feeling that has driven me so much of my life, and I'm kind of grateful for it driving me and never being satisfied. That it's not that it's asymptotic. I do better at feeling like I'm doing the priority thing, but I never get to where I'm really at peace about it. It's become like a low voltage cattle prod in me. And I can go through days of doldrums where there's not a lot of wind in my sail. And I recognize that that's just part of what it's like to be alive. If I went through a lot of them, I'd worry. If I go through even a few of them in a row, I worry that I'm failing. But also, I got that worry because I'm 69. I know that at some point between now and 90, I've got to get to where I count it as an important and productive day that I had a good shit. And I'm not there right now. I really have this dogged "what have you done for yourself lately" feeling about my work life. And I'm totally addicted to it, especially because I've trimmed way back on playing music. So and I trimmed off dating and partnership a decade ago. So I'm really down to my addiction to my work as the confidence currency I thrive on. So I don't want to lose this one, which is why I'm glad you're here. Okay, teleodynamics is the lack of self worth is usually hidden. And I'm saying so, before I go on to teleodynamics, surely yes, lack of self worth. I'm saying that would be a thing for all humans. I don't consider it a rare pathology. And this does tie to teleodynamics, which is this idea that you got to explain what we are from the origins and notice the big differences. One of the big differences is that I've got language. And because of language, I am dogged by questions about my self worth. And it's also why I can doll myself up with all sorts of self affirmations and, design my life in such a way that I get affirmed enough to feel reassured. All of that is tied in for me to teleodynamics. Okay. Um, let's see, has been irony. Irony makes it entertaining and enjoyable as well. Thank you for that. And for getting what I'm talking about. One of the biggest disappointments in this line of work is when I think someone gets what I'm talking about, and it turns out they don't. I still have every intention of writing this song. I miss who I mistook you for, but I don't have a feeling like that with you, M, uh, MZ, Michael. Uh, it is so. So let me just tie that in and make a brief advertisement for this thing this podcast series I'm doing called Irony is the Truest Medicine. That's kind of the punchline, but I'm going all the way back, and what I'm doing is allowing myself the long-windedness that I allow myself here, but with a focus on trying to show that ironic situations are built in. They're not built in, they're the ground from which we emerge, and that in a way I am actually physical irony. That will take some to explain how I am, but I'm using the second law against itself. I've got this kind of relationship with energy and matter. I take in food, not poison, as best I can, but there will be ironic situations where the food I take in is actually poison, like it is metaphorically for the MAGA people, as far as I'm concerned, or the poison I keep out is actually the medicine or food I need to take. So that's an ironic situation, is when the outcome is the opposite of expectations, when you've misinterpreted a situation. So I could paint that whole picture based on my experience of life, my intuitions, all of that. I don't want to do that. I want to actually understand what the actual fuck I am from the ground up, and how irony has been. I I come back to irony. I guess what I could say is I was irony has been my medicine for a long time now. I mostly came to it by intuition. And then I go and study the origins of life, and then I start to recognize, wait a second, it's there from the beginning. Now, two possibilities there. One is I I can't help but see irony because irony has been my lens. And the other is that I went back to try to figure out what we actually are, and found out that irony was the ground, that the bedrock keeps pulling the rug out from under itself. Um, let's see. Let's see. Irony. I'm coming back to that, I'm sure. But Rev Walt, I used to have it, still do to a smaller extent. Want to make sure I understand it. Um, oh, it's the idea that we need to be part of something greater. Okay, so I used to have it. The what becomes the question here, and one possibility is you're talking about that sense of doing something important, and the other is the ironic sense. Um, I love the pairing of them because they're kind of contradictions of each other. I think I mentioned this before. I had a girlfriend who once said, "I want to make a difference. I want to feel like I make a difference." And I realized as she said that those are two somewhat some only sometimes correlated things. Feeling like you make a difference, feeling like you're doing something more important is easier to do than actually doing something important. It's the idea that we need to be part of something greater. Religions, cults are great for this. Yeah, so notice this a connection I'll make between all of this and the core currencies. Uh, those of us who are not Trump supporters are a little starved on the confidence currencies these days. We're not, and one of the reasons why is because being a little starved, we see people dropping off. They don't want if you're not going to get a confidence currency from this work, what are you even doing it for? I don't know if you've seen Kamala Harris on Stephen Colbert, and she's expressing some of this. She's saying, "Yeah, the system is broken. I don't know. I don't think I want to go back into the system, the mainstream system. It's kind of buzzkill to have done all of that and come away with nothing, except a chip on my shoulder and a bunch of people calling me bad." She didn't say all that, but that's what happens when your confidence currency dwindles from some source. You might start roving and looking for other sources of it. In the meantime, the MAGA folks are having a confidence currency orgy. Um, you know, because they can hold out, they get the feeling that they're winning, and not only that, they're just self-congratulating. They're mutually congratulating. A fourth time I went to Burning Man. I went with a bunch of uh, ecstatic dance buddies, friends I knew through a friend who had gotten deep into ecstatic dance, and I had joined her at a summer camp for ecstatic dance. And I mean, for a couple of days, it was like a cultural visit elsewhere. But I marveled and got even grumpy because we were a camp, and I swear nobody could say anything without it being the absolute superlative. You're awesome. You're great. Everything's great. Isn't everything incredible? Count your blessings nonstop. Pathological kind of a sense of it was like a mutual admiration society made of leftists dressed in fake furs and all that sort of stuff. And I became, I tend to get cranky around a thing like that. It wasn't my scene. Um, but I can imagine basking in that kind of affirmation, and that's the kind of gravy train that they're on. Toxic positivity cult, exactly. Um, and yeah, and we can call it toxic, but the question is, why is it toxic? I can label anything toxic. Um, why is it toxic? Well, the hungry are soon eaten, and there is a way in which um, it's it's toxic because of what's driving it. But even if it's just an indulgence people have slipped into, um, a the problem with a a mutual admiration society is it becomes more and more threatening to say anything critical. And in some ways, that's how we lost to the Trumpists. Yeah, because it doesn't make room for honesty is my sense of it. It blocks out honesty, and I think that's some of what motivated MAGA in the first place. We got too smarmy. We on the left got too sweet, assuring, all of that. I made 2 videos of the same script the other day, and, I put out one this morning, and it's an animation version. I'm trying to get into animation a bit. Um, and so I was so in it, um, I've got a character who's a sports fan saying, You and I agree on everything. That's on pretty much everything about the country. That's why I can tell you're just doing, you're just doing fan cosplay in your Trump stuff. But one of the things he says is, "Yeah, we're both into MAGA." So I ran this by a liberal friend yesterday, and she said, "Yeah, you're not allowed to say MAGA. We're not trying to make America great again. We're trying to make America great." So there was something about um, that sounds negative because it's not paying attention to how America might have once been great before. It's also the part of that kind of virtue signaling where we are the good people. We can afford to demand absolute purity. Don't say MAGA because America wasn't great for many Americans. A fine point. Um, but too fine a point for what I was doing. Okay, let's see. Uh, I'm kind of all over here. So let me see. And then I started with trying to understand others and found I'm learning exponentially about my own cognitive dissonance thanks to your content. The whole point of this work is I wouldn't put it past me. Nothing human is foreign to me. And so that's the opposite is where introspection um, becomes fuel, uh, not poison, not kryptonite. Um, and I am really curious how one can do that, how to do that more efficiently than I have. Here's my point about that. I had 10 years of Freudian analysis on the couch starting at age 8, 4 days a week. That's an incredibly expensive, time-consuming way that I think made it possible ultimately, eventually, for me to wince a little less at seeing my own shit than comes naturally than most people can afford. After all, most people have to be on stage most of the time presenting, like if you're in customer service or anything like that, or consulting work or anything, you got to be best face forward. Well, if you got a family, you got the same thing. You're performing most of the time. Well, I've eked out this weird life where I can afford. It's not just that I can afford to introspect; it's that I have this weird life where that's actually my confidence currency. Is that when I notice myself doing something hypocritical or egotistical, I get to make a video about it, about the shit that people do. So, um, so in a way, my question is how this is this is the equivalent of the hippies who thought that LSD made people sane, and we're trying to figure out, okay, well, how we put this into the water system. I am not saying people should be like me. I, but I am saying it'd be nice if somehow society-wide introspection wasn't so terrifying, and you learning expecting my own cognitive dissonance, thanks to your content, as as M. Zinip is saying here. Um, that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to demonstrate a, a shamelessness about my own human behavior. Um, and I think some of this is just me in a uh, in a legacy of people who did that for me as well. There are people who really had that effect on me. They were like role models for confidence and competence. So I come back to those two terms. There's cocky confidence, and then there's calm confidence. The calm confidence is from a certain kind of competence that is they two feed on each other. They're almost I hadn't thought of this before just now. They're kind of the opposite of the dumbass death spiral that's been on my mind for a while, which is you're not you're not feeling competent, you're feeling dumb. And so you 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 embrace a cocky confidence that makes it so you don't have to develop competence. Yeah, I never noticed that before. This is what's fun about this work is you get to just keep on mixing and matching. So there's a video in there. Anyway, what I'm talking about is how do you get that competence and confidence? I think it's related to what Michael's talking about here, learning exponentially about my own cognitive dissonance. Recognize, exercise, manage. I'm recognizing that I'm a piece of work, that I was born a piece of work, that I brought my own piece of work flavor to it. That is, there are things about my life that made me, you could say, a particular kind of, or even especially a piece of work. Piece of work in both ways. How do I manage that? I have a kind of a confidence that comes from not being afraid to look at my shit as much as I used to be. I would never claim I'm open-minded. I look at no, that's bullshit. It's still an aversion for me. I don't like being disappointed with myself. It's hard on the mojo. But there is a general kind of ironic confidence in my own wobbly competence. And I'm thinking this will probably be uh, as good a bet as any on how to slowly reluctantly face my demise. How to get to the place where at 90 I can at least a little laugh if I'm still around and if I'm still somewhat compos mentis. Um, at the pride I take in having a good shit and calling it a productive day. Uh, I don't know. I don't know. That's a lot. On the positive, you got a system that feeds into itself. On the positive, I have that system. It's not overwhelming. I've got a new hearing aid that hurts my ear. That's what this thing is in here. It's a bit of moleskin. I'm gonna take it out just because it's distracting. Um, on the positive, you got a system that feeds into itself. Yes, you say that, and it's true. I think that's what we're trying to do. So let's talk a little bit about that. I think that's a very relevant point and relates to the thing about teleodynamics. I have a strange loop relationship. You do too. In any of the sources of mojo you're relying on, not all of them, but at least you perceive them this way. Suppose you're someone whose mojo comes from conversations with God. Okay, there's not really a God out there, but you have this impression that you're talking to someone who loves you. You know, you're talking to Jesus or talking to God, and you feel this kind of give and take feedback. You say praiseful things about him, he says it back to you. It's a mutual admiration society. You rev out on that. Okay. I, in a way, am doing that with you. Um, we're not talking here. I mean, I'm not hearing your voice. I'm not seeing your face. And yet, I tell you, I'm gonna come out of this session today with more mojo for finishing up the work of the day. That's how it works for me. And I wrote an article years ago called Gods, Dogs, and Blogs about how we can do that. I mentioned it in a recent live. Um, Humans can do that. We can actually pretend that we are having a conversation with someone who really reassures us. We can do that about God. We can do that with our dogs, as if the dog loves us for everything we want to be loved for, not just for whatever they happen to love us for. Um, uh, and and me as a blog writer, that's what I'm mostly doing. I'm putting out stuff, and that people it's a combination of things. I get kudos, some of which I take for granted. I get signs that I'm not insane and that there's someone else out there who resonates with what I'm saying. Um, I feel a cycle, and perhaps people on the receiving end, the other end of this, feel that way too. They feel heard. So all of that fits together for me, and it's got to do with a kind of system that feeds into itself. So let's see. I'm just going to read through navigating by understanding the vision of how they see their place and function in society. That's right. So I get a kind of echolocation when I say I'm here, and others say I see you, and vice versa. You're there, I see you, that kind of thing, and it's also how we end up finding our niche in society. I don't know if you know this concept out of evolutionary theory. It's called genetic drift, but it's when you get a population, a unrepresentative sample of an organism that ends up on an island, and because of that, there's a genetic drift where they end up becoming more and more a certain, distinct because they started with an unrepresentative sample. That kind of thing, I only thought of it this week, but there's obviously mimetic drift too, where people of a certain kind of temperament or local culture become driven more and more in that direction. They become more and more distinct that way. So you could describe all of our polarization that way, our place and function in disparate societies. So last night I watched two wonderful documentaries about romanticism, the period of the romantic period and what it's doing. Um, I've been very interested in what romance really means, and I'd come to the conclusion it's the dream of happily ever after that lives in all of us and cannot be met by reality. And I had some sense of the romantic period, which is people like Robert Burns and Wordsworth and Victor Hugo and um, uh, um, let's see, Wagner, the Brothers Grimm. There's a whole reaction to the Enlightenment. And it's also a reaction to Napoleon because Napoleon, sorry, all of this, it's a run on. Napoleon makes people recognize that they don't have to fight for kings. They can fight for their own people. And one of the big motivators was this sense to see their place and function in society. It was the birth of nationalism and a national retaliation against Napoleon as well. So what is it? What's the birth of romanticism? It's nostalgia for your tribe's place and function. Um, Nostalgia. What is nostalgia? It's you could say the dream of happily ever after that was once realized. It was realized in my past. It's not just something I want to get back to, it's something I once had. So when you think about fall from grace myths, from the origins of religion, this idea that we once had the ideal. It's like heaven before and heaven hereafter, but not right now. We had it, which means we can have it again. It's the proof of concept that we were once in the Garden of Eden. We can get it again. All of that is this anxious appetite. From my perspective, it's all related to this thing about my problem is that always a nagging feeling that I need to do something more important. I need to get someplace I'm not. Um, uh, I love Paul Simon's song "Train in the Distance" for capturing this. Everybody hears the sound of the train in the distance. Everybody thinks it's true. What is the point of the story? What information pertains? The thought that life could be better is woven indelibly into our hearts and our brains. If you haven't heard that song, I recommend it. It's autobiographical. I think he's talking about his marriage to Carrie Fisher, but it's beautifully crafted. And around that same time, Bonnie Raitt did a similar song, not as moving to me, but she did a song called "Longing in Their Hearts." Um, she was dating at the time a Buddhist, and she was playing with those things about our yearnings, our inevitable yearnings. I guess in a way I'm doing something kind of Buddhist here because I'm trying to say I want to gain greater comfort with my inevitable discomfort. But I don't. Buddhism turned out to feel like smarma to me, like smarby dharma. smarmy dharma. At least the exposure I had to it. I'm looking for something more ironic, and there's a little taste of that here and there in Buddhism. Enlightenment is the ego's ultimate disappointment. Um, Enlightenment is easy if you have no preferences. Those are slightly ironic from my perspective. Um, the line, though my heart is on fire, my eyes are cold as ashes, that resonates for me. But there's a lot of it that ends up feeling like anxious people dreaming of happily ever after in enlightenment. Good Lord, can this guy talk in run on sentences? Let me see what we got here. Getting past the what the fuck and into the reflection to strategies has been helpful. Um, Already to transition from the WTF. Um, Great. There are Michael, thank you for that. The WTF is it can mean two things. I have clients who tend to ground out in what the fuck? What am my the person I'm dealing with is behaving weirdly. What the fuck? They mean it that way. Of course, I also have this other framing that relates to what I was just talking about, which is the dream of happily ever after is the dream of a wild card trump card. So the WTF, as I've used it, is a wild card trump card formula. So if you want to feel like no matter what you're doing, it's the most important thing, a wild card trump card formula is the solution for you. Wild card means um, there's something I can imagine uh, that is, and I can imagine it however I want. It wants me to do whatever. So when you're talking to when someone has a revelation from having heard from God, they've got the wild card feeling, which is that I can do whatever I imagine God demanding of me, and it's God. It's a trump card. So I see these as the is exactly what you'd get when you'd cross life with emotions, with language, and in particular with infinity, which is a concept that only humans can think of because it takes language or symbols to do it. So what do you get? You get dreams of ultimate satisfaction, of absolute satisfaction on all fronts. What you also get, you get what any feeling organism would want, which was complete freedom and complete safety. You'd also get what any organism would want, which is to not be thwarted and get to do what you want. It's so what a plant would want that. A plant would not, if it had feelings and thoughts, it would prefer not encountering that rock that's in the way of its roots. Okay, so perfect freedom, perfect safety. Who wouldn't want that? Can we own that that would be not just in human nature, but in living nature? I don't want to be thwarted. I want to do what I want to do, and I want to be safe doing it. Perfect freedom, perfect safety. Well, the perfect safety comes from the trump card side of the perspective, which is no matter what I do, it's unassailable. That is, it beats everything, which means nothing can beat it down. So I can't lose. That's the trump card. And the wild card is I can do whatever I want. So to me, I mean, I just think this is a horrible time to be alive because we might be doomed because of Trump. At the same time, it's a beautiful time to be alive if you want to understand this feature of human nature, because there have been lots of assholes and tyrants before, but this is quintessential. This is uncut assholery. This is just, I mean, you could mistake Hitler for being a nationalist. You could mistake Stalin for being a communist. It's really hard to mistake Trump for being anything but playing the wild card Trump card formula, pretending that, running on nothing but pretending that he's always right, righteous, and mighty, that he can do whatever he wants, and whatever he wants is the best of all. And so we're seeing that uncut drug, heroin, in the sense of it being making everybody feel like a hero. It's a herobotic aspect of it all. That we're seeing how much of a draw that is and how much people are willing to neglect their children's futures and all of that um, for the romantic dream. Shirley says sold as romantic. Yeah, it's a romantic dream, the dream of happily ever after. Is fascism romantic? Extremely, from my perspective. Um, and not only that, in this video series, which you can see on YouTube, I just stumbled on it. It's this guy, Simon Schma, who had done a whole series on the history of Jews. And I can kind of see what his subtext is here because the Jewish religion has its own very romantic, it's a love story. It's about God having picked the Jews of all people as his romantic partner. Um, and us being unfaithful to him, but him always taking us back under his wing. It's, I mean, I'm, I'm trying to understand human nature. Even if we die from all of this, I'm trying to take the most accurate notes I can on what we're actually like, me and you and everybody. So Simon Schma, I think, is picking up on that. Um, uh, I had this conversation the other night with my Zionist buddy, Zionist Trumpist buddy, and we're trying to get him to think about how romantic he is about it. He's not a practicing Jew. He doesn't believe in God, but he still talks sometimes like it's worth it somehow to do whatever it takes to preserve our 4,000-year-old traditions. And I'm saying, yeah, no, I think there are higher priorities than us winning the Guinness Book of World Records for having this romantic vision all the time. It's not, I mean, I respect my elders for having it, but it's not a, we've used up the Earth's carrying capacity for such self-flattering bullshit. Um, Interesting conversations with him. I think he sort of sees what I'm saying, but the romantic, once you find a romantic story and you find your purpose and feeling and place within it, um, it's really hard to give it up. And that's some of the problem we're dealing with right now. And every time there's some new wake up, some new epiphany, the one that gave us the Jews, that gave us Christians, that gave us Protestants, that give us MAGA, you got a whole new bunch of people who are going to be really nostalgic for the time when they felt like they could do no wrong and they could do anything they wanted. They had found their personalized wild card, trump card. And how do you get people off of that thing? It's just so hard. I'm still trying to figure it out, but it is hard. Okay, let me see. Where are we? Maybe I'm not surrounded by fascists, but really tacky romantics. Well, if you're surrounded by Trumpists, call them on their romanticism. This is like a rom-com for them. In fact, after this, I'll make an AI where the gorgeous man is Trump, and the frail woman is a MAGA supporter. AI is wonderful for that. Um, uh, so yes, what was that? Fabio. So Trump is Fabio, and the MAGA supporter is the romantic who's fallen madly in love with him and is in his arm and bent back like that. We gotta do that. Let me just say, in in relation to what I'd said earlier, this is. I hope that you go off and do your own version of what I'm doing. I'm having a great time, but that comes from me having an idea, capturing it on the fly, capturing it in some form, and then having some vehicle for putting it out into the world. And to keep on doing that's what's called a word-wise spiral. I'd come up with a new idea. I couldn't find the words to say it. I'd struggle for the language. I'd soon get the language, which made it possible for me to have new ideas on top of that. That's really been my buzz for the last 30, 35 years, is just doing that. It's a cycle. I put stuff out, I hear back. It's the cycle we are talking about earlier. It's where you're part of a system, and it motivates me to generate more stuff. So even if you're just starting with that, if you get an idea in passing, in a notion flies by, you see someone do something and you say, "Oh, that's interesting." Um, you notice the hypocrisy in someone else. You notice yourself talking out both sides of your mouth. If you just say, "Oh, that's interesting," and then you write it down, you get 30 seconds to write it down, maybe before you might forget it, and then turn it into something. Turn it into the cheapest little meme on Facebook. Don't put up your pictures of your meals, or I mean, put up pictures of your family and all that. I do occasionally, but use your social media as what we call a commonplace book, a place where you're putting down ideas that intrigue you. Start generating them. You can do this. It's not hard, I don't think. Um, it's just unfamiliar and most people aren't doing it. So I encourage you to do that as much as you can. Uh, generate ideas, and then come back into these meetings, these conversations with your ideas. Even write it up as a short paragraph so we can talk about it here and bounce the idea off of us. That's the kind of stuff I'm after here. That ties back into the nagging feeling. It would be comforting to know that I'm in the right, like MAGA. I see the appeal, and this ties into this thing about completeness. Um, uh, I I recommend you see this video on incompleteness on YouTube. I also recommend the stuff on romanticism, uh, and a new one called "Finding the Money" that I haven't seen the whole thing on, but it was recommended to me. Let's see. I'm just looking up the incompleteness. Incompleteness. Ver, it's this one. It's it's on veritasium, massive mental flaw. Uh, so here we go. I'm putting it up. Yes, a homework assignment for limited light. Um, and if you don't watch this thing, you won't be able to pass the test next time. And if you don't pass the test this time, I'm not even sure your light might be limited. Um, no, it's a lot. It's relevant. I came away from watching this thing thinking, I've really got to get clear on the incompleteness in our bones. Um, so incompleteness is a product of self-reference. Um, y- the most basic example is the liar's paradox. This statement is false, or simply, I am lying. So I am lying. If it's true that I'm lying, then the statement is not true. In which case, if it's not true, then I'm telling the truth when I say I'm lying, which means that I am lying. So it toggles. Um, Self reference, there was a big campaign to avoid self reference, to prevent it from math so you could have completeness, consistency, and determinacy, or decidability, which means that you can always know whether a statement is true or false. There'd be no talking on both sides of the mouth. Um, and in the 1920s, they finally realized there was no way to avoid those problems, the liar's paradox. You cannot escape them. And if you haven't seen it yet, I made a video that does, I think, a good intuitive job uh, of explaining this. I called it Girdle Mighty. Um, and it's a dialogue between me and a Nigerian teenager who was staying at my house for a while. She's talking to me, I'm God, and he explains why you cannot have that kind of completeness. But I want to understand it in my bones, because I actually think that that incompleteness and the appetite for completeness this sense that I am eternally right, righteous, and mighty, like MAGA, like Godey's talking about there. Um, the relationship between the two is really intense and really a wonderful lens for looking at us. The appetite to feel like it, I mean, the way I'd express it is I I'm I'm tired of getting it wrong. I keep on having a less than 100% return rate, and when I fail at something, it makes me feel like a chump and makes me feel like I'm at risk. I don't want to be at risk. Uh, Someone else take over because I'm not doing a good job. I'm not competent enough to have mastered life, or yeah, something like that. And so I need the ultimate algorithm. I need an algorithm that solves reality forevermore. I need the theory of everything that explains anything and anticipates everything. So I will never be tricked again. I'll never have to deal with an ironic situation where I try my best and it doesn't come out the best. That's what I would want. That's what a human would want. Um, and and then you feel like you've got it from somewhere, and it's a feeling thing. It's not that you got it. It's not like you assess it and kick the tires. In fact, what you'll probably do is rely on a couple of simple con artist moves. Here's a standard con artist move. A con artist starts with out with 5,000 names of people who are into sports betting. He cuts it in half. He gives one half of the list the prediction that one team will win, and the other half that the opposite team will win. One team wins. He throws away the list of the people who he told the other team would win. He does the thing again, splits the list. So he got 250. He's now got 2,500. He's now got 1,250 people. He's predicted to each group that they will win, and after he tosses out the list that loses, and he's got 1,250 people who thinks that he's bet right 2 times, that he guessed exactly right. So obviously a con artist can do all of that, but Trump could go beyond that. That is, there's nothing he has not claimed was a win. Not once has he been punked in this entire process. And he's got the ultimate way of avoiding admitting that he's lost, which is I don't care. As long as you can say I don't care, no matter what you, and say it as though whatever you don't care about is beneath you, it's very hard to lose. It's very hard to look. It's very hard to lose your confidence. So this is that other approach to confidence. It's not a calm confidence. It's like a psychopathic confidence. Um, I win. I'm very selective. I look at all my wins and I count them, and I ignore all my losses. I can make up excuses for them. I say I lost because they cheated. Whatever. I don't care. That's all it takes. And so to understand that appetite in humans for completeness, for the sense that we have the formula that can't be undermined, that has no liar's paradoxes in it. That appetite is intense. I'm paying more and more attention to it, and I'm trying to figure out what to do about the people who indulge in that sense, that what I call herobotics. And that's and not because I have great ideas about how to deal with it. I don't. I wish I had better ideas. I saw an article in the Atlantic Monthly today about gaslighting and Darvo and all of the dark triad and the dark quadrad, and the article, it was lame. I just thought Atlantic Monthly puts this thing out and it says, if you encounter someone like that, leave right away. Don't have any dealings with them. Yeah, if you can leave, and if you can get away with leaving, and it doesn't leave a bunch of people as their victims, that's fine. Go ahead and leave the herobotic asshole. But in the meantime, they're undermining society, and to simply say just ignore them doesn't work. don't fight the pig, you'll just get dirty and the pig likes it. Yeah, if you can get away with never fighting the pig, go ahead, but never say never, because some pigs you have to fight and they will like it and you will get dirty. And so I'm trying to figure out how to fight them better. And for that, I had that one idea this week that I just turned into the cartoon and also dialogue yesterday. So I'll mention that briefly here. By the way, I can't believe it. I mean, I'm just monologuing. When I'm with people, I am keeping track as best I can of my tunnel vision monologue reveries. But that I got 16 people on here listening to me as I go on and on. I just got to tell you, it makes me a little uncomfortable. I do want software that keeps track of what percentage of time people are talking in conversation, and other vital statistics like how many people interrupted, how animated the voices were, and all that stuff. I think we need that software. I'm surprised we don't have it. But here's the new technique I came up with. So I deal with all these leftists who say we just got to be human with them. If we share common values with the MAGA people, and if we just say, hey, you want to make America great, I want to make America great, we want security, and I get that. It's a very useful strategy, the one where you find common ground with them. But I also recognize that doesn't work with these guys, especially because when you go high when they go low, it's affirming for them. It means that they can get away with it. These are people who you can concede things to. You give an inch and they'll take a mile reliably. So I've been thinking about that. And then suddenly the other day on a walk, I realized, okay, there's a hybrid here, where you say, because we are obviously after the same things, I can tell you're just doing cosplay dress up. So you actually use the fact that obviously we share the same interests as a way of exposing that they're just doing a circle jerk vanity project out of government. There's nothing more than that. Have you tried doing these streams where you provide us a link to join via audio video? Okay, so now this is interesting to me. I have tried many times to get people to send me their email so we could do a video conversation, and not many people do. So now, I don't know that YouTube, which is the only place I have your contact in, and some of you I know through other social media, but this is, so what I need to see is limited light. If your light is not so limited that you actually know a way that I could invite you in on this conversation, just remember, I'm a 69-year-old, a little slow to this shit. So send me a link so I know how to do that. And then next time we could have a conversation where all your mugs are on the screen and we could be talking to each other. There must be a way to do that, come to think of it, because not everybody who does YouTube lives is monologuing. Often it's a conversation. I only know how to do that through Google Meet and Zoom and things like that. So if anybody's got a link by which anybody could join this conversation, good Lord, let's do that. I do not want to monologue at you, and I don't want to force you to be typing while I'm just rambling on. So please, limited light, send me a suggestion for how to do that. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Okay. I've covered lots of ground, maybe, or I've smeared myself across all sorts of ground. Is there any themes anybody wants to take up? And here's the other question. Remember a minute ago I said, when you get a notion, capture it. Let's hear it. Anybody had a notion since I saw you guys last that you want to share? Some thought, some insight. It also seems it's done using StreamYard. Oh, I've also seen it done. Have you tried? Okay, so I do have StreamYard. I'm not using it currently. I'm going to look into whether or not Streamline is the way I could do that on YouTube. The question is, I know you could do it through Stream. I know when I'm on a podcast interview, it's on StreamYard, and yeah, we get together that way. but I have to see what, and I know that YouTube uses StreamYard. I'll look into it. I'll look into it. Um, I've mostly been looking into animation software because I think in dialogue a lot. Um, some I love that philosophy starts with dialogue, Plato's dialogues. Um, and I think there's a lot to be done with that medium. But me acting it out on two screens is labor intensive, and so I'm looking into animation. But animating all of us would also be good. Okay, so anybody have any ideas? Surely I'm going to come back to this thing. Conquer the castle, rescue the maiden, slay the dragon. Sold as romantic. There is I have a colleague in this research, you could say, who was a woman, Asian woman, who wrote a book called Slay the Dragon. And I found it useful at first, but also symptomatic of what's problematic in this work. So she was inspired. She's a lawyer and a go-getter, and she was inspired to this work by being married to someone she declares to be a narcissist. Um, and she spends most of the book talking about her tales of daring do and how she slayed this or that narcissist. And the assumption, I think, is that anybody who reads her book would be one of the heroes who is slaying the dragons, who are obviously the villains. And that's where the stuff that Michael and I've been talking about it relates. Is that I don't get to do that. I don't get to assume that anybody I butt heads with is a butthead. I have to understand it at a deeper level than that. But SLAY stands for something. She's got SLAY as her acronym for the formula. It always works against narcissists. These are books that fill you with hope and also heroism, a sense that you're this hero. Okay. I've also seen it done using extreme. Okay. Let's see. Are you familiar with authoritarianism? Yes, I am. One takeaway is that reducing fear of authoritarian followers is key. Good. Okay. So you're saying I think this is related to the kind of work I try to do. So you're saying um, if we are fearful of authoritarian followers, basically the goon squads, we're in trouble. Uh, we have to reduce our fear of the followers. I would say that that's been pretty central to my work. Um, what is our fear of the authoritarian followers? Um, let's see. Good. Uh, one of the fears is that they will catch us in some human failing. I think this is a huge vulnerability we did not account for when we were liberals ever refining our virtue signaling, preening ourselves on our sense that we could be the good exemplars who demonstrate to the world how to be good and nice and all of that. Um, so I was one of those virtue signalers, and one of the effects of that is that it makes us vulnerable to critique from the goon squad. So the goon squad can point out a human failing and and in us, not that they care about it, or not that they don't have it themselves, but the fun comes from getting us on the defensive. We get afraid that they're going to call us out for our human behavior. It was an early interest in my work in authoritarian research is how it seems that the resistance to authoritarians suddenly become kind of prudish. They circle the wagons and start to get defensive um, uh, in their virtue signaling. It's almost like when they go low, we go pathologically high, and they can just tug at our shoelaces, and suddenly we're scared and we scramble to go higher and higher. Um, it's been one of my problems with most of the videos I watch. I watch them, but there's this general sense that for 10 years now, Most of what has played as anti-Trump videos is, "Do you see what he did? See, that proves he's a hypocrite. We see it, we're good, we can point out their failings." I think we did a lot of that, as a way it's a way of feeling like we are the good guys and they're the bad guys. I think we are, but at the same time, you don't wanna get lost in that. You want to be strategic, and to be strategic, you have to get over your need to feel somehow pure. Uh, a lot of the comments I get as Magnificent Mike are from leftists who are giving their best shot at attacking me. And it's not impressive because it comes across as them on their high horse trying to tear me down with some moral, they point out that I'm a hypocrite. Well, if I'm MAGA Mike, I'm glad to be a hypocrite. Rich people can be hypocrites, powerful people can. So I think we lose a important strategic insight from getting too busy trying to maintain our own virtue signaling. So that was something that relates to this thing, reducing the fear of authoritarian followers. I don't think we can just say it by let's speak truth power to power or come on, you guys. Is the only there's a lot of quotes these days about how the worst criminals are those who fall silent in the face of tyranny. There's a lot of memes like that these days. I don't think they factor in that if you have a choice between keeping your job or speaking or resisting, that actually you're very likely to to do what it takes to keep your job. That would be human. It's simply saying we have a moral duty, which is easy to declare, regardless of whether you and you're in a similar situation would give up your job to resist the goon squad. Um, but I do think there are openings for us to be tougher, and for that you need confidence. Again, I come back to that. I need to be okay. I need to have pre-grieved the things that I'll be accused of by Trumpists. Um, if I wince when they say that stuff, I've lost. If I need to persuade them that I'm not, if I get defensive in response to them, I'm doomed. If I need to persuade them of anything, I'm doomed. I don't go into it that way. I'm trying to be. I, I, I am trying to reduce. I'm cultivating this idea that you can reduce fear of authoritarians by admitting to your own humanness, by being strategic, by not trying to persuade them of something. I do not try to persuade a Trumpist of my opinion. I do ridicule the shit out of them for their fear of curiosity or their terror at introspection. Um, I'll go way out on that limb with them, but I'm not trying to persuade them that they're wrong about Trump. I'm just trying to point out that they've gotten addicted to a wild card Trump card formula like just all the rest. Okay, let's see where we are. Um, I'm more afraid of being thrown in a concentration camp. Well, with a nose like this, it's possible. It's very confusing what Trump is doing with with the Jews. I don't think uh, I don't think he's on our side. I don't think he's on anybody's side. But like the parent of one of my Jewish friends kept saying, just stay away from their ovens. Just stay away from their ovens. This is the same person who said, cancer, schmancer, as long as you got your health. Those are ironic statements. Um, I'm afraid of that too, and I lose sleep over it. Um, there's a convergence of things for me lately that I lose sleep over. By which I mean I get up in the middle of the night and then I go back to sleep. But one of them is that I'm aging, and another is that everything I've worked for all my life is in decline. Another is my kids have to and grandkids have to live with it. Um, and another is that I'm out on a limb this way or that. But an example would be that we'd be thrown into concentration camps. So I guess what I would say about that is we haven't been yet. I don't want to be melodramatic about it, and yet it is a possibility. It's good to have an escape route. I have temporary residency in Mexico. Um, Only the paranoid survive, but you also don't want to be overly paranoid. And in the meantime, here I am, this human being, lucky enough to get to see humans through the ever more careful lenses of science, or a peculiarly stubborn attempt to think realistically or clearly. So for me, a lot of what's going on is, whether I'm doomed or not, and in a way I, I was from birth, we all are, I want to spend what discretionary time I have trying to get an accurate sense of what we are and not get too distracted in that work, but just try to understand what we really, really are. In a way, we've been avoiding that since the origins of human language and our capacity to do it. Um, but in a way, we also couldn't get a better sense of what we are than we do these days because of new insights. I mean, the ideas in self-organization, the ideas in complexity theory, systems theory before that, cybernetics, all of those ideas, none of which explain us, but are useful bridges to explaining us. There are a bunch of insights in the last 150 years that now makes it possible, I think, for us to understand what we actually are, from the origins of life to fuck faces like the Trumpies, or like the liberal equivalent of Trumpies. It's not about the lifestyle brand. It's about what humans do when they get a chance. It's about how playing God is way easier than being human if you can get away with it. It's about how crime pays if you can get away with it. It's about, um, you could say, the difficult transcendence. When you think about what a Trumpist is, those are very evolved creatures by biological standards. If the goal is survival and thriving for you and yours, they're good at it. You know, dynasties, family dynasties are highly evolved in that respect. They're like super predators, only different. They're super duper predators because they have language that they can use to rationalize and mobilize and justify and moralize and all of that. So they're a fascinating outcome in that they're kind of, in a way, more of what you'd expect from evolution, from Darwinian selection. And at the same time, we have this human capacity to be stewards for the whole planet. Um, so it's almost like we're watching White Knuckle Ride, the last season, the last episode of some fundamental battle, not the kind where you slay the dragons, but between the humans who can actually tolerate stomach being the humans they are and recognizing, exercising, managing it, versus the people who can't, won't, or think they shouldn't do any of that and should just bullshit doze their way across everybody. Um, I We aren't going to see how this all plays out. We're going to see better than the people who died in the 1970s. Um, but I'm saying no. I would like to. I'm trying to stay away from their. I'm trying to stay away from their ovens. But in the meantime, I'm over here scrambling, taking careful notes as I can, and then erasing and correcting and trying to refine these notes I'm taking. I want the actual fuck we are. I don't know what it's for. I do sometimes imagine it'd be nice if we packaged up our conclusions of what happens when you get a symbolic species like us, a creature that works in language and therefore concept. And if we could just encapsulate that and toss that out into the universe as kind of, here's the shit to watch out for if you are happen to be a intelligent life form elsewhere. This is what we came up against. I do assume that the problems we're dealing with as a language species here on Earth are exactly the problems that we would be that any whether carbon-based or not, any life in the universe that has language would be dealing with exactly the shit we're dealing with. Just as an illustration, they would be dealing with gods. They would have the idea of God, the ultimate, you know, all-knowing, all-good, all-powerful, all-one. They certainly come up with that. That's a language thing. That's what you get when you cross emotions with infinity, infinite satisfaction. You definitely have major climate problems like nuclear war or climate change, and you definitely have denial of those problems because that's what you can do with language. Language enables you to be a legend in your own mind. You can close your eyes and pretend that you got it all solved. You can tell the EPA that climate change is not a problem. I assume these problems are fundamental in the universe for creatures with our degree of self-reference, self-representation. It's the kind of slipperiness you get from incompleteness, which, by the way, is, again, your homework assignment. Let me see. I've got to read a few things before we tie it up. By the way, I got to say, it's been a few weeks away. I'm going to my daughter's wedding next weekend, so I'm not sure whether I will put up a time for another one of these soon. I need it. I hope you like it. I thank you for being here. It's really good for me to connect with you all. It's good for my mental health. Um, let's see. I'm just going to read these last ones. Yes, Cody, they have higher baseline levels of fear. Fearful people fall for authoritarian more often. Well, yeah, a quick thing about that. What I noticed is the more anxious you are, the more you don't dream of being okay. You dream of being enlightened. If you really enter into a dark night of the soul, what you're going to want is permanent affirmation. You'll want to come out claiming you've seen the light and will never get near that hole again. Let's see. They get others to buy into that rationalization. Yes, if you're talking about true believers, or what I would call actually false, they're dishonest relievers. They're claiming that they believe something, but they don't actually. They're just getting relief from it. Um, a theme in my work, my practical work, like my marriage consulting, is demoralizing. Is what humans can do is they can moralize. What is moralizing? It's basically claiming that the universe is on your side, or the universe or God or whatever, the highest possible cause. That is, you're working for the highest possible cause. And you'll notice about MAGA is very unspecific about what its goal is. All they need to say is no matter what conflict, our priorities trump yours. And the same thing happens with Christianity. It's just like once you've got a master excuse like that, a master moralizing excuse that no matter what, mine is the supreme cause, then you can do whatever you want underneath it. And if someone says, wait, well, you're contradicting your own cause, you say, no, my cause is actually higher than that. And so these are just means to ends. No deed too dirty for a saint like me. Let's see. Sorry, my above comment was unclear. I meant that we need to find ways to help authoritarian falls. Okay. I think both are true. That is, for us to help authoritarians feel less afraid, we have to feel less afraid and more confident as we go into those conversations. If you haven't seen that animation I just made, just check it out, because the football player in it is very calm and easygoing and friendly and fearless of the Trumpy. We have a study group. If you're not part of it, come join it. Just send me your email and you're automatically on the list. You don't have to attend. We meet every other Sunday, with a little variation, because just for another week while I'm away for my daughter's wedding. But we meet every other Sunday. We're trying to figure out how to help authoritarians feel less afraid of complexity and change. But we're doing it a few different ways. What the theme in that work is repertoire, not recipe. There is no formula for doing it. I have several friends who sell formulas. I don't think that there are formulas. I think it's really hard because they don't want to. They're not just afraid. I don't want to give them that simplistic diagnosis. I think that they are, whether they got into it because they were terrified or traumatized as kids, or whether it's just more fun playing God than being human, they're addicted to it. So our repertoire includes ways of, and the way I think about it is that they are hiding inside a suit of armor, spiked suit of armor, and I'm trying to diddle my finger into any crevice in there, either to coax them out as fellow human beings or to poke them in the fucking eye. Not because I want to speak truth to power and feel heroic, but because if you got someone who's as addicted as these guys are to that feeling like they're gods and have solved everything, they're not going to give it up if you just reach in a friendly hand. Most of them won't. You have to make it cost them or they will never leave. I'm grateful that it's likely to start to cost them, not through me. I had a child who was like, I was glad when he turned 18 because I didn't have to be the go-between between him and society anymore. He started to get his comeuppance from society itself. So there's a way in which the Trumpists will experience that as well. And I'm glad of that. But in the meantime, when I have dealings with them, I'm not just going to say, calm down. It's okay. Change is difficult. I'm not going to talk to them that way because, I mean, I might, but if I do, it's mostly going to be to try to humiliate them a little bit. Um, that's kind of, so, okay. Do I send out a Zoom link? I do send out what I send out is a Google Meet link for that chat. And it's a delightful group of people. And they bring in, the idea is you bring in examples of what you've tried out or what you've seen tried. And we talk about it. It's strictly strategic. I mean, I think we by now are getting some emotional support from working on this together, but mostly from having a project to do related to it. I don't want to just sit on the sidelines and lament or be outraged or point out yet again that the Trumpists are bad. There's lots of evidence of that, and I think that's us just kind of spinning our wheels because we don't know what else to do. Well, this group is one that knows what to do. It's trying to figure out how to humbly humble humans who will say or do anything to avoid human humility. It's how to engage with people there's no talking to. I think it's a fabulous project for us all to be wondering about. It's what I meant earlier. I am not satisfied with mine or anyone's solutions to. It's hard work. I do think that I will end with this. It's so fucking grandiose, but try this out. A minute ago, I said that any organism that has language and therefore concepts anywhere in the universe would be dealing with the problems we're dealing with, including major climate problems, tyrants, religions that get out of hand, uh, people who become legends in their own mind and it goes to their heads and they forget to zip up after. Um, Total potential for civilization's collapse. My whole first career was in climate change, nuclear winter, all of that. I recently there's a reunion of the master's program in public policy, and we were all just catching up with each other. And I said, I concluded that this was the most important public policy issue. We cannot begin to address our practical problems in this world as long as we continue to be asshole magnets like we are. And over in society, we go for this guy who claims the wild card, trump card, and claims it's branded exclusively to them, to their tribe. That's all Trump has done. He's given everybody a wild card, trump card. You look at the back, it says Trump brand, as if it's the only brand that can do it. I think that the question the study group is dealing with, this modest group of study group people, how do you humbly humble? That is not without getting on the high horse yourself. You're humbly humbling humans who will say or do anything to avoid human humility, not just because they're scared, but because it's so fucking satisfying. What do you say to them? If we don't solve that, we're doomed. And that would be true anywhere in the universe. Once you got language, you got these problems. We got these problems because we got language. So on that front, thank you for being here. And I will be back. I may have to set up next week's not for Saturday as usual because of my daughter's wedding. Um, but I'm coming back. I haven't gone anywhere. It's so nice that you have come back that we can have this conversation. Thank you, you guys. And I will see you sometime soon. And I'll put it up. I'll schedule it right and remember the right time to come. All right. Thanks everyone for being here. You guys. See you.